She's also known for her roles in cult classics like Cruel Intentions, Hellboy, The Sweetest Thing. In a 2018 Instagram post, Blair revealed that she was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. Since then, she has shared her journey and become an advocate for people with chronic illnesses and disabilities. Her book is called Mean Baby. I love this title. Memoir of Growing Up became a New York Times bestseller when it was first released last year. Now, guys, it will be available in paperback tomorrow, so if you haven't read it, now you get another shot at it. Selma Blair joins us now for her first broadcast interview ahead of the paperback release. She's here with her support dog, Scout. Thank you, Selma.
Thank you so much.
I'm so excited to have you here this morning because your book, number one, journey is a word for what you've been through. But you were, I think, 22 years old, and you had gone to the eye doctor about an inflammation. And when you were 22, that doctor said, I've never seen what's happening in your eyes.
Right. I was 22. I'd actually, I'd gone away to college, hadn't done an eye exam, but I had been ill this whole time. I mean, they called me Dr. Blair, my friends, because I was doing my thesis on candida, all these things. Like, what do I have? Like fibromyalgia, no diagnosis, but I was always sick. And so oh my God, my brain just did this.
Sorry. No, but that's okay. When you were 22, the doctor said, I've never seen this.
I didn't even go
except
for
in people that have MS.
And he looked at me and he said, you have optical neuritis. Do you have MS? And instead of thinking, well, we should look into this, I just thought, no.
Yes.
I knew about everything. I never, ever assumed I had a neurological illness. And I had been to many neurologists because I had headaches and fevers.
But Selma, that was at 22, and you continued to have all sorts of different symptoms over the years.
Like what? It still continued all the time. I had balance issues. I did definitely have prefrontal damage, like impulse issues, which I think also helped contribute to some of the alcoholism, but it always went in and out. I was very much a private drinker, a binge drinker at home, off and on. It was not at work. It was, I was very careful. A careful drunk. And so
a lot of it you attributed to alcohol.
So then I thought, oh God, I must have fallen when I was drunk. I was quite honest with my friends. Like, I got a little drunk. I must have fallen on the bricks. I'd have cuts, and I'd go to the eye doctor, and they'd say, you're losing your peripheral vision. And I was like, oh, I just have amblyopia in my eye. But it was from damage from optical neuritis.
So when you finally get the diagnosis at 40-something, what did you think?
When I got the diagnosis at late 40-something, it seems I was surprised, but then it was like, oh, of course. And when the doctor said the first night, you've had this at least 25, 30 years, at least, I was happy.
Happy?
I needed it. When someone is told continuously that it's in your head or you're depressed or, oh no, every mother feels this way when they give birth. And I'm like, no, I really can't walk. It is so painful. They're like, so I just thought I'm a wimp. I thought maybe I do have real mental illness that can't differentiate between emotional or physical pain. And I took that, and so I did not trust myself.
And living with that is painful.
And living with that is painful, to not trust yourself or trust your body and then be having all these symptoms and people saying you're stoned or you're this or that, when I'm like, no, I've never tried that at the time. So it was so disconcerting, so it just seemed fine. On my own time, I'll just drink, I check out. And so to find that out and think, oh, there's a story I can put together. It was life-changing, and so that is so important to me. And in the book, too, really why I wrote it then after the stem cell transplant, that bone marrow that was quite harsh but amazing. I am in remission with the help of my neurologist now. But to write that book, I thought, I hope someone can see that maybe there's more, or if they've done shameful things, or choices they made, go easy on yourself, because you need to come out of it. It's not going to help anyone to stay down and add to that.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on the book. I know there's an anecdote in the book about how, as a high school kid, you wanted to be a writer, and you wanted people to see you as a writer, and then you were on stage, and they said, no, you're an actor.
My life, it was my mother said, you're going to write a book one day, and I will edit it, and this is what we're, and so that's what I did. I wrote every day, and I was in love with my English class, the one class that saved me, that I did well in besides photography. And when my English teacher came to that play, Murder in the Cathedral, T.S. Eliot, which was horrible, tap dancing on the stage, and he said, you're not a writer, you're an actor. You're going to go act. You're going to go be in soap operas or something, they're in Michigan. And I was like, oh, crud.
Yeah.
Crud, that means I'm not a writer.
What you talk about, being candid in your book, about when people have gone through things, you talk about a rock bottom moment for you. You're on a plane with your favorite son, Arthur, your beloved son, and Arthur's dad. you had a bottom moment that you said was personally humiliating, but oddly freeing. What happened to you on that plane, on that flight?
I had been in Cancun with my son's father and my son. For the first time, we were all together as a family. We had broken up right after the birth, and I didn't know what a flare I was in. I had been feeling very ill, and I was sober. And I checked in the hotel, and in this presidential suite, there was this grand bar.
Yes.
And as soon as I started to unpack, I just drank.
Yeah.
And it was that easy. I'd been sober for a few years, but not really working on it. I was too tired to care. And I spent my whole trip in that room drinking and throwing up and drinking. And so by the time I got on the plane, I don't even remember
You
it.
were gone. And
I was already dehydrated and sick. I was not actually drinking on the plane. I came into it.
But you were passed out. You just remember
And
waking
then
up.
something- I
A
woke up
jerky
in the hospital.
passenger, though, took a picture of
Someone
you and
took a
released it. I thought
picture
that was a
and then
very
said some things that I
crappy
might
thing
or
to
might not
do.
have said. I'm sure I was
Yeah.
probably really out of sorts, and I did have assistants and oxygen and nurses on the plane. And when we did land, I was in the hospital and woke up there, and I was like, wow, this is rock bottom, and
And I'm
my
gonna
son is
do
not
something.
dead.
Yes.
And no one's dead, and I did not hurt anyone. You better get this together now.
And you
New
did.
life, and I did.
There's a great
immediately.
picture in the book of you jumping in the water. I love this picture. Your body, the way your toes are pointed. And what happened? This was probably
That
the
was-
last picture when you
That was
realized.
the last picture. That was kind of the end of my youth. I was a really active person, and I was on my friend's fancy boat in Miami. I said, I got to get this for the gram. And got to get what those kids are doing. And I thought I had Parkinson's at this point, and I didn't know, but when I jumped in that water and knew I actually couldn't move, I couldn't. I was like, oh, I'm done.
But Selma, you are now here. You said you're going to make the cane cool. You were on the cover of Vogue.
And you're doing
Yeah,
it.
you're doing
You
it.
were on the
Yes.
cover of Vogue with the cane, and you said, look, I'm going to make this cool and
Yes,
embrace
to
it.
think to be on the
Look
cover
at
of
you.
Vogue now.
Yes.
At age 50, I'd been on the cover of Vogue's
Yes.
in my youth, but it was fashion. It was, my relationship with a photographer. But to be on this cover and to also represent 1/4 of the population of disabled people
Wow.
that thought there is no way in haute couture that they're
Yes.
showing someone that is a little person, that is transgender in a wheelchair in a gorgeous gown, to have a middle-aged woman showing her cane. And so
Middle age. Is that what you're calling
well,
yourself?
isn't it? Well, I always
Selma-
want to make myself sound older so people could say, you look great.
You do
No
look
one says
great.
that anymore.
You look
They
great.
used to say
Thank
it
you,
10 years
Selma.
ago. They're like, you look
50
great.
and fine.